My sister told the whole church I was nothing but a beggar. She laughed while I stood in silence, holding the deed to a house she secretly sold behind my back. My father's watch, gone. My name, erased from our family trust. And when I finally spoke up, a priest got down on his knees and called me Sister Superior. But why? Why now? And why me? Let me know if you'd like a slower paced or alternate variation. The gravel crunched beneath my heels as I stepped out of the rental car, the late afternoon sun washing over the vineyard like a scene from a lifestyle magazine. Rows of grapevines stretched in both directions, the hills of Napa glowing gold behind them. The kind of place you imagine when you picture someone else's perfect life. Someone like Heather. I'd spent 2 hours getting ready, carefully ironing my only good dress, a soft navy cotton number that hung politely off the shoulders. Still, it looked like something from last decade next to the silk, lace, and sparkle around me. I adjusted the strap of my purse and walked slowly toward the ceremony tent. Champagne glasses clinked, laughter lifted into the breeze. Not mine. Heather was the first to spot me. Her smile was instant and polished, camera-ready. She gave me the kind of hug you give a stranger at a networking event. Our mother followed, air-kissing both of Heather's cheeks before turning to me with a look that said, "You came?" "I wasn't sure you'd show," Heather said, her voice syrupy. "It's such a long drive from— where is it again? Modesto?" I smiled, not because I felt like it, but because I didn't want to ruin her big day. That's how it's always been. I shrink to fit the space they allow. Walking toward the seating area, I passed 2 relatives I hadn't seen in years. One leaned over to the other and whispered, not quietly enough, "Why would she even come here?" The other just raised her eyebrows like it was a valid question. At the family table, they had arranged 9 chairs for 10 people. No one noticed until I stood there awkwardly, clutching my purse strap, waiting. Finally, Uncle Mark scooted his chair a few inches and muttered, "Here, squeeze in." The conversation swirled around me like wind I couldn't catch. Heather's wedding dress had cost more than my car. The honeymoon was going to Santorini. My father just expanded the company to Arizona. Everyone nodded along. I tried to chime in, just once, about something I'd read in the travel section, Santorini's weather patterns in the fall. "Oh, sweetie," Aunt Joanne interrupted with a laugh, "you wouldn't get it." I stopped talking. The waiter brought wine. I asked for water. As I took a sip, a memory hit me like static. My mother, years ago, telling me, "You've always been the helper. That's your strength." It was right after she'd asked me to stay home and care for Aunt Mabel, so Heather could accept her NYU scholarship. At the gift table, I slipped my envelope into the white box, hoping no one noticed. Heather did. "Oh, you didn't have to bring anything. We know times are tight for you," she said loudly, her voice ringing through the tent. People laughed, lightly, awkwardly. The kind of laugh that tells you it's okay to mock someone because everyone else already did. "I mean, you're still in that tiny studio, right?" Our cousin Brent chimed in, too loud from across the wine barrel bar. My face went hot. "At least I can afford peace," I said, calm but clear. Someone muttered, "Charity case," behind me. I didn't turn around. I walked away slowly, headed to the restroom, whispering to myself like a chant, "You're not here for them. You're here because you matter." Inside, I locked the stall door and checked my phone. One unread text from Tessa, my oldest friend, the only one who wasn't here. "Did Heather ever pay you back?" It read. My breath caught. Flashback, sharp and vivid. Me, 17, handing over the envelope with my college fund inside. Heather in tears after the car accident, promising she'd pay it back once she was settled, maybe after the wedding. I'd believed her. My parents never even knew. Now, I was looking at the gold-trimmed programs, the custom cocktail napkins, the floating floral centerpieces. "This is what I paid for?" I whispered. I stepped out, back into the sunlight. The ceremony was starting. Rows of guests seated beneath a white archway adorned with roses, Heather and our father walking slowly down the aisle. I stayed in the back, preparing to slip away before the vows. But then, the priest paused mid-sentence. He looked out across the crowd. His eyes landed on me. "To the one who's lived in service," he said, his voice carrying in the hush, Not just to faith, but to family. We honor your spirit." He bowed, ever so slightly. A ripple moved through the guests. Someone whispered, "Is she clergy?" Another murmured, "She volunteered at the women's shelter, didn't she?" Heather's smile froze, and I stood still, not proud, not broken, just aware that maybe, just maybe, their stage didn't belong to them alone. That wasn't the moment I walked away, but it should have been. I stepped outside the tent, the evening air cooler than I remembered. The priest's words still echoed somewhere in me, though I wasn't sure what they meant. It didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like a reminder that no one else was ever going to say it. Past the neatly trimmed hedges and white garden chairs, I wandered toward the edge of the vineyard. Cypress trees lined the back fence. As a kid, I used to sit beneath them during family fights. Not that I ever yelled. I'd just disappear until people forgot to blame me. My feet stopped on instinct, right where the gravel met the dirt. A memory surfaced. 21 years old, fresh out of community college. I sold my beat-up Toyota so Heather could pay for college applications. Our parents had said no to her fifth choice, said it was a waste. So, I made it happen. She never thanked me. In fact, she told everyone she got in on scholarship and pure grit. That was Heather's style. Take the credit, forget the help. I stood there for a long minute. Then a waiter passed, carrying a tray of empty flutes. He glanced at me and stopped. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said. "Heather used to tell folks you'd cut ties with the family, for good." I smiled without meaning to. "Did she now?" He nodded slowly and kept walking. I stayed still, swallowing a laugh that wasn't really funny. Maybe this was what family meant. Giving what you never got back and watching them rewrite the story without you in it. By the time I made it back toward the tent, the sun was lower, casting long shadows across the tables. I was about to head for the drink station when I heard my name, quiet but unmistakable. "Charlene?" I turned and there he was. Lucien, the groom's cousin, my ex. The last man I'd loved in that real, terrifying way that makes your bones ache. We stared for a second. He looked good. Gray at the temples, softer eyes, same calm posture I remembered from long nights parked in his truck, just talking. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. I almost didn't. We walked a few steps away from the noise, toward a shaded path behind the catering tent. "I always wondered," he started, "why it ended the way it did. You just vanished." I exhaled. Because Heather told me she'd expose my counseling records from college if I didn't back off, said she'd make it seem like I wasn't stable, said no one would marry someone with emotional issues. Lucien's face dropped. "She told me you weren't ready for real commitment, that you didn't want anything serious." I stared at him, bitter recognition setting in. Of course she did. She said it'd be better for everyone if I moved on. I was young. I listened. I nodded slowly. She never wanted me to leave her shadow, and she knew you were my shot at stepping out of it. He looked away, jaw tight. "I'm sorry." I wanted to scream, or cry, or just throw something. But I didn't. I just said, "You believed her. That's the part that still stings." We parted without another word. When I walked back inside, people were laughing at something near the gift table. The wedding planner, clipboard in hand, smiled nervously at me. "Oh, Charlene, right? Little issue with the gift box. A few envelopes went missing. We think they got shuffled when we moved the table for the photos." "Mine was a thin one," I said. She nodded. "That'll do it. Thin envelopes often slip away." She moved on, but I didn't, because mine wasn't a gift of money. It was a letter. I'd written it the night before. Couldn't sleep. It wasn't poetic or dramatic. Just a reminder of something Heather and I promised at our mother's hospital bed 15 years ago. "No matter how far we go," Heather had whispered, "we don't forget the one who stayed." Well, apparently she had. Now my letter was misplaced, just like I'd been. Dinner was starting. I was placed at a table near the back, nowhere near Heather or the wedding party. Just a few of the groom's elderly aunts and a niece who spent most of the meal texting, The wine kept pouring. Someone gave a toast about sisters who lift each other up. I watched Heather beam across the room, raising her glass like she'd won something. I lifted mine too. Or sisters who rewrite history, one lie at a time. Silence. An older man across from me blinked, then said, "That was uncalled for." "Was it, though?" I said, voice calm. My hands didn't shake. A few seats down, the teenage niece leaned closer, her voice low. "You're cooler than they say." I smiled, just a little. Not because it healed anything, but because someone, somewhere, finally saw me. I didn't come to ruin her wedding, but I wasn't going to protect her mask anymore either. The morning sunlight crept in slow, golden strips across the tile floor of the Vineyard guest house. I hadn't slept, just stared at the ceiling for hours, hearing last night's toasts echo in my head like old voicemail messages I didn't want to replay. Outside, a few leftover guests were still laughing faintly across the property, probably dragging themselves toward brunch and mimosas, still wrapped in the afterglow of Heather's perfect day. I sat on the little patio off my room, knees pulled up, coffee untouched. It was quiet, except for birds and the faint hum of vineyard machinery starting up in the distance. My phone buzzed once on the table. No text from Heather, not even a "thanks for coming." And just like that, I was back in that beige hospital waiting room, 15 years earlier. Fluorescent lights flickering overhead, vending machine coffee in hand. I'd waited 11 hours while Heather recovered from a minor outpatient procedure. Her real friends never showed up. It was just me, filling in the blank space. She'd squeezed my hand that night, groggy from anesthesia, and said, "We're all we've got, no matter what." But that promise? It had a shelf life, and apparently, I'd missed the expiration date. I got up to pack, wanted to be gone before anyone noticed. The suitcase zipper jammed halfway. I tugged, hard, and knocked over a dusty box shoved in the closet corner. The label read, "Charlene Heather, 90s. I stared at it, then opened the top. Inside, old ticket stubs, friendship bracelets, a broken cassette, and at the bottom, a pink diary. Mine. The one with the lock. Heather picked open more times than I could count. I flipped through pages filled with glitter pens and bad spelling, until one slipped out. A torn scrap with a sentence scrawled in Heather's handwriting. "I'll be her shadow if that means she never leaves me." I froze. Underneath was another page, a list. Titled, "If she ever becomes more liked than me." I read down. "Tell people she's unstable, make her think no one wants her, keep her close enough so she can't run, make her feel guilty. Always." My hands trembled, not from anger, from recognition. She hadn't just been cruel. She'd been calculating, since we were 12. My entire adult life I'd questioned myself, shrunk, second-guessed, and there it was, in ink. The script she'd written for me. "You were planning your sabotage since we were 12? I whispered, as if she were hiding behind the door. I sat back on the carpet, diary open in my lap. Everything tilted, not dramatically, just enough to make me doubt what was real and what I'd convinced myself to accept. I let myself remember. All of it. The birthdays I gave up because Heather had a crisis. The college internship I turned down when Mom got sick. While Heather took a summer in Europe. Every insult I'd laughed off. Every backhanded compliment I swallowed. For years I called that strength, but silence isn't strength. It's strategy, one that benefits the person who yells louder. Our mother used to say, "Don't make a fuss, family forgives." But what if family never apologizes? What if they take your forgiveness like it's owed? I sat at the desk and opened a notebook, wrote the first sentence of a letter I wasn't planning to send. Not to Heather, to me. "You are not what they left behind." Just that. I stared at it for a long time. A knock pulled me back. I opened the door, half expecting a staff member with towels, but it was Father Alonzo, the wedding priest. He looked out of place, standing in daylight without the robes, just khakis, a polo, and a kind face. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said. "I was told you hadn't checked out yet." I nodded, unsure. He continued, I recognized your name yesterday from a donation list. 5 years ago, you funded a shelter in Marin anonymously. My sister stayed there once when she was escaping a terrible situation. I blinked. I didn't think anyone connected the dots. He stepped forward slightly, gentle. You didn't ask to be seen, but people still saw. You helped more than you know. I didn't speak. Couldn't. He took a breath. Your sister may have played the bride, but you've always been the sanctuary. I felt something catch in my throat. Not sadness, something deeper, like someone had opened a window I didn't know had been painted shut. He nodded once, then left. I closed the door, leaned against it. I didn't need Heather to see me anymore. Someone else already had. Monday came like a slap. Sharp, dry, uninvited. I landed back in Austin late Sunday night, still carrying the aftertaste of wine I never wanted and smiles I didn't trust. By 8:30 a.m., I was back at my desk at the legal aid office, reviewing case notes while sipping burnt coffee. The client across from me that morning, a 15-year-old girl, was terrified. I guided her through a mediation, her voice barely audible as she explained how her uncle hit her, how her mother told her to stay quiet for the family. I helped her get a temporary protective order. She looked at me like I'd done something brave, but I didn't feel brave. I felt fake. I could fight for strangers, but not myself. Back at my desk, I saw it, propped in the corner of my monitor, a handmade card, bright purple, glitter glue everywhere. Thank you for believing me when no one else did. It nearly broke me. That same hour, I deleted Heather's name from my favorites list. It didn't feel petty. It felt overdue. Then a voicemail popped up. Mom. Her voice was low, clipped. Don't stir the pot. It's over now. Let it be. Click. Let it be. That phrase. God, how many times had we been told that growing up? After fights, after lies, after Heather shattered something and walked away like nothing happened. Don't stir the pot. I stared at the screen. Didn't press play again. Didn't call back. Just sat there with my jaw tight enough to crack a tooth. Later that evening, I got a ping. My phone buzzed with a message from Stephanie, one of the wedding guests. We hadn't spoken much, but I remembered her, sweet, quiet, always on her phone. Her text just said, "Thought you should see this. I didn't feel right keeping it to myself." Attached were screenshots, a family group chat I'd never been added to. Family Connect. Real original. In the thread, Heather had written, Charlene has always made everything about her. She'll probably spin this into some sob story. A string of laughing emojis followed. Aunt Rose had replied, she needs to let go of the past. It's her choice to be so bitter. Even my godmother, who hugged me tight at the reception, had liked the post. It wasn't the words that stunned me, it was the silence. The ones who sat at my table, who made small talk like nothing was wrong, who clapped when the priest mentioned my work. They knew. And they said nothing. It was never just Heather. The poison had spread because no one spoke up. That night, my phone lit up again. This time, Marcus. My cousin from New Orleans. We barely talked, only saw each other every few years, but he asked to grab dinner. Said he was in town for a conference, needed to talk. I hesitated, but curiosity won. We met at a quiet diner off South Lamar. Nothing fancy. The kind of place with cracked booths and coffee that tasted like old pennies. I sat across from him, unsure. He didn't waste time. I saw the group chat, he said, voice low. I left it. He leaned in. Years ago, I dated someone who cut me off from my brothers. Every time I called them, she'd cry, guilt me, make me feel like I was betraying her. It took me 2 years to even see it. I just listened. I watched you at the wedding, he continued. I don't know everything, but I saw enough to know. She does that to you. Heather, I've seen it. I blinked hard. You don't have to say that. No, he said, but I want to. Because no one ever said it to me. We talked until our fries went cold. About family. About guilt. About how loyalty gets twisted into silence. How some people weaponize kindness, use it as camouflage. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was too sensitive, or dramatic, or ungrateful. I felt understood. When I got home, I sat down and opened my laptop, typed out an email. Not a rant, not revenge, just the truth. What had happened, how it made me feel, what I would and wouldn't accept going forward. No ultimatums, no attacks, but clear, honest. I didn't hit send. I saved it as a draft. Not because I was scared, but because I wasn't going to let hurt do the writing. I needed it to come from healing. Later, I pulled out a new journal. Clean pages, fresh start. I wrote one line. If they want a version of me that doesn't speak, they picked the wrong woman. I sat back, closed the book, then opened my phone, scrolled through old contacts until I found it. Dr. Keller, my old counselor. I hit call. When she picked up and said, "Hello?" I finally felt the first crack in the wall inside me. And yet, I had no idea how loud my silence had already become. The text came in while I was folding laundry. Aunt Maureen, of course. "Heard you're not coming to the post-wedding brunch. That's a shame." No emoji, no question mark. Just that, like I had declined some warm invitation I never actually received. I stared at it. No RSVP, no text, not even a passive-aggressive evite. I wasn't invited. But somehow, I was already cast as the one who chose to stay away. It wasn't new. Just another version of a story they'd been rewriting for years. A rewrite where my absence made me the problem. I sat down, towel half folded in my lap, and remembered prom night. Senior year. I'd been invited to speak at a scholarship banquet in Houston, an honor. But Heather had begged me not to go. "It's my night," she said. "I want all eyes on me, please." So I stayed home, pretended I was sick. This brunch felt like déjà vu. But this time, I wasn't staying home. The next morning, I pulled my hair back, put on a blue dress that didn't try too hard, and walked through those double doors like I belonged, because I did. People turned. Cousins paused mid-bite. Heather was across the room, laughing a little too hard, her hands flying as she retold some story about the honeymoon. She saw me. Her smile froze. Just for a beat. I found a seat at the far end of the table. No one stopped me. But the energy shifted, like someone had cracked a window in a too-warm room. Halfway through the meal, I excused myself and stepped into the restroom. The door barely closed behind me when I heard it open again. Heather. She leaned against the counter like we were still teenagers trading secrets, but her voice was all blade. "Why are you doing this, Charlene? Do you really need the attention that bad?" I didn't raise my voice, just looked at her reflection in the mirror. "No," I said. "I need to stop pretending I was never there." She narrowed her eyes. "You start dragging up ghosts, you're gonna regret it. I'm serious. Let sleeping dogs lie." I stepped closer. Not angry, not afraid, just tired of being quiet. "That's the thing about ghosts," I said. "They haunt everybody eventually." We stood there, both staring at our reflections. The silence was louder than anything we could have screamed. Then I walked out first. Back at the table, conversation picked up. But it was stilted, forks clinked, napkins were fiddled with. I sat down calmly, like nothing happened. Someone asked about my job. I answered clearly, maybe a bit too precisely. "I work with women escaping domestic abuse. It's quiet work, but important." Heather let out a sudden laugh, loud, forced. "Well, it's not like you ever needed rescuing, Charlene." I didn't flinch. You'd be surprised what kind of harm happens behind smiles. The table went still. Aunt Maureen's fork slipped from her hand, a cousin cleared his throat, and then, soft, barely audible, someone whispered, "Finally, someone said it." Heather left early. She didn't even look back. I stayed, helped clear dishes, picked up empty cups and straightened chairs. It wasn't about playing nice, it was about being present on my terms. Uncle Darrell waited until most people had left. He shuffled over, slower than I remembered, with something folded in his hand. "This was from your grandmother," he said. "She gave it to me a while back. told me to hold on to it until you needed strength. I unfolded the envelope. Inside was a note, her handwriting still neat after all these years. Speak the truth even when your voice shakes. That's when it matters most. I didn't cry, just tucked it in my pocket and whispered, "Thanks, Grandma." For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for Heather to see me. I didn't need her to. And now, I had just one question left. What else had they buried in silence? I woke up before the sun even had a chance to warm the sky. No coffee, no distractions, just a silent resolve in my chest that led me straight to the public records office in Santa Rosa. It wasn't flashy, low ceilings, buzzing fluorescents, the smell of old paper and inkjet toner. But truth doesn't always live in grand halls. Sometimes it hides in filing cabinets and forgotten indexes. I scanned through deeds, transfers, probate records. There it was, Parcel 38A. Once under my father's name, now listed as owner H. Whitfield. No court transfer, no family meeting, just a single line, signed C.W. Notarized the month after Dad died. Heather had done it quietly, under our noses, just weeks after we buried him. I whispered to myself, "You stole from the grave to keep me buried." I took photos of everything, contract pages, signature blocks, notary stamps. I triple-checked the chain of custody. This wasn't hearsay, it was a paper trail. It was proof. Back in my car, I ran the numbers: acreage, value per square foot, mineral rights potential. Dad always said, land is memory made solid, and she had taken that memory and rewritten it under her name. Then came the emails. I found a chain between Heather and an old family attorney. Her wording was calm, professional. "We'll minimize disruption if we keep this quiet." Her name was never formally listed. Best to avoid conflict. Each sentence built a cage around my name until it disappeared completely. She didn't just manipulate people, she erased me legally. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part just marveled. The strategy, the timing, the precision. She didn't stumble into betrayal, she engineered it. The estate office was a glass building off Main. Corporate. Cold. I walked in calm, file folder in hand. Heather was already seated with Marisol, their family lawyer, flipping through notes like it was any other meeting. They hadn't expected me. Not with evidence. I placed the documents on the table one by one. I didn't raise my voice. "Did you think I wouldn't find this?" Heather blinked, then smiled, like it was all a misunderstanding. "That land was unoccupied. We needed liquidity to—" I cut her off. "No, you needed silence." Marisol chimed in, hands folded. "Your sister's been trying to preserve the family business." I met her eyes. "I preserved nothing. You preserved a lie." The air thickened. No one moved. For a moment, even the HVAC hum felt louder. I stood. That was enough. Outside, I didn't even make it to my car before Heather followed. Her tone had changed. "This is just the beginning," she hissed. "You keep pushing, and you'll lose more than some dirt." I turned slowly. My hands didn't shake this time. "I've already lost more than dirt. You're losing me now." She stared for a second, like she wasn't sure if I meant it. Then she slammed the car door and sped off. I leaned against my own car, heart pounding. Not fear, not sadness, just clarity. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus. "Hey, I need a favor." "Name it." "Request full audits on all family-held assets, titles, trusts, inheritances, everything public." He didn't ask why. He knew. I woke to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Multiple missed calls, from Heather, from a law office, from an unknown number. My heart squeezed. I sat up, the threat Heather made last night replaying with fresh clarity. "You'll lose more than property." I dressed quickly, shoved evidence into my satchel. Contract copies, email threads, that letter from Aunt Daryl. As I left, I remembered when I was 12, climbing into the attic to hear Heather telling Mom, "She'll never shine brighter than me." I'd held my breath, terrified someone would hear. I told myself I'd never be naive again. At the courthouse hallway, Eldon Carter waited, my former professor. He handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside, handwritten drafts, student journals, and a dated magazine issue showing Heather claiming credit for a paper I wrote years ago. My name was footnoted, but she was credited outright. He said softly, "I saved this all these years." Some things are worth unveiling in due time. My chest pounded. He offered to testify, to go on record publicly. I nodded. Something deep in me loosened. The war on truth was becoming real. Later, I marched into Heather's real estate office downtown. The lobby was quiet, sleek, mirrored glass. In the boardroom, I laid out deeds, plagiarism proof, screenshot of that chat. Heather looked at the evidence like she was surprised she put it out there. "You're tearing down your sister for attention," she accused, voice controlled. I held her stare. "Maybe I want people to see me, not ignore me." Marisol, already there, called security. Heather ordered me escorted out. I walked to the door slowly, turned on my heel before I left. "I'm not leaving. You're just not going to stop me." I said it loud enough for them all to hear. That evening, my phone blew up. A video had been posted, our confrontation edited. My voice cut, statements framed as threats. Caption read, "Charlene attacks sister, causes scandal." Comments ranged from "jealous witch" to "who exposes their family like that?" Despair washed over me. She weaponized my words the moment my voice mattered. Yet I didn't crumble. I stiffened my resolve. I would chase the full clip, the unedited version. I would not let her erase the part I played. I lay awake that night, hearing the hum of servers and whispered judgments, but somewhere beneath the tension, I felt something electric. I was no longer a shadow. I was stepping out of one. Morning light cast long shadows through the blinds as we gathered. I sat with Eldon and Marcus in a modest conference room downtown, tables pushed together, laptops open, papers stacked like silent witnesses. Eldon projected documents onto a screen, deed transfers, email chains, the plagiarism proof. Marcus tested the live stream connection, his voice calm, professional, no room for theatrics. Reporters had been notified, community leaders too. We were ready. My speech lay open on the table, factual, firm, no personal attacks, only rights, boundaries, and the story no one had dared tell. My heart thumped against my ribs. This was the moment I'd waited for, spoken toward in dark nights and silent tears. The door clicked. Heather stepped in, jaw tight, eyes wide. She realized we'd gone public without warning. The live stream began. I started with the deed transfers, showing how her name crept into Dad's estate file. Then came the email evidence, her correspondence with lawyers, talking about quiet title transfers, avoiding family conflicts. The feed cut abruptly. The screen went black for a heartbeat, then flickered back, with Heather's face in a recorded confession. She admitted to manipulating assets, editing records, gaslighting me for years. But the split screen revealed Eldon's authenticated documents. The plagiarism files, the original drafts she claimed as her own, were there. Viewers gasped. Comments exploded. Finally! They got her! Power to the truth! Heather's face turned ashen. She lunged for the mic, but the feed switched to backup. My voice returned, steady, composed. I said, "You tried to erase me. I'm here to restore what never should have been stolen." The balance shifted. As the live stream rolled on, Father Caspian entered behind me. He stepped forward, slowly, every eye on him. He knelt, his head bowed. "By faith and truth," he said, "I bow to Sister Winter." Gasps, shock. The screen showed him extending his hand to me. Heather and Marisol froze. Security guards looked between us, uncertain. The moment didn't need shouting. Its weight landed. A priest, on live video, stepping out of ceremony to place his respect on me, publicly. The moral ground shifted. When the feed ended, the room held its breath. Reporters moved forward with notebooks already open. I stood with Eldon, Marcus, Father Caspian behind me. Heather avoided my eyes. Marisol stumbled with defenses. I spoke softly. "Let the truth stand, unembellished. That is all I ever asked." Cameras clicked. Reporters murmured. One said on mic, Sister Winter exposed decades of deceit with dignity. Heather stormed out before questions could land. Marisol wept silently. I stepped forward, motionless yet sovereign, letting the flashbulbs mark what justice felt like. In my chest, I heard a whisper. This is what justice looks like, when your silence is no longer your prison. It was a quiet Thursday morning, almost exactly 1 week after the live stream. I had just returned from the market when I noticed an envelope on the front step. No stamp, just my name in pen. The handwriting stopped me cold. It was from Aunt Margaret. I thought she'd died years ago. Inside was a letter from a nursing home in Vermont. She'd watched the live stream, recognized my name, and decided it was time. She said she'd kept quiet for too long and couldn't carry the family's silence to her grave. Along with the letter was an old leather-bound journal. The pages smelled of dust and time, but what they carried felt like lightning. She spoke of a misread will, a lie told to protect a child, and my name, written next to the words, "She was always meant to lead." Aunt Margaret had known about my calling, even before I could spell my own name. I read it twice, holding the letter close. There was grief, but it didn't hurt like before. It just settled me. Like truth finally catching up. I spent the next day paging through Margaret's journal. Near the end, one entry unraveled the rest. I wasn't born into the family. I was chosen. Abandoned as a newborn at a convent, my birth mother had been a nun who died shortly after childbirth. The nuns never told anyone else. They quietly arranged for me to be adopted by the family. And that was the beginning of everything. My place, my pain, the whispers behind doors. Heather and Marisol had always known. That's why I was treated like a placeholder, a problem, not blood. But now, I understood. The seal on that bracelet I wore, the one Father Caspian noticed the day he bowed, it was from that convent, Sacred Heart of the Morning. That wasn't coincidence. That was confirmation. My life, the call to serve, the silence I wore like armor, none of it had been weakness. It had been sacred. A few days later, I drove to a small coastal town, alone. The kind of place where waves don't ask questions. I brought Margaret's letter, my own childhood journal, and a folder of printed lies Heather had spread over the years. I set them all in a small fire pit and watched them burn, not with rage, not for revenge, but because it was time. Ash blew toward the sea. I called Father Caspian that night, just to say thank you, for believing in something long before I could name it. The next morning, I wrote a letter to Heather and Marisol. It wasn't angry, it didn't beg. It said, "You don't need to understand me, just know I am finally free." And I meant it, not in a dramatic way, just solid, like truth had found a permanent home in my spine. My voice, the one I'd lost for years, felt steady, not louder, just unshakable. Over the next month, I started volunteering at a community counseling center. Most of the people there were older, estranged from kids, cut off from siblings. They didn't need advice. They needed to be heard, and I understood that silence better than most. Marcus began turning my story into a podcast, focusing on what comes after the breaking, when you start again. Eldon called every Tuesday. We didn't talk about the court anymore. We talked about gardens and books and peace. Then one Sunday, Father Caspian asked me to speak. Just a few minutes. I stood at his chapel, sunlight through the stained glass warming the back of my neck, and said, "The silence that once broke me now becomes my strength." I didn't read from notes. I just spoke. That was enough. Before I left, he pressed something into my hand. A bracelet. My bracelet. But this time, engraved with initials I hadn't known until now. M.S. Maria Serafina. My mother. My beginning.